Fast series. We're at Watkins Glen getting ready for the Champ Car race at the end of this month using the iRacing simulator. This video is part of a series, 50 laps to get up to speed, and in this video we focus on laps 26 through 35. It's a 10-lap exercise to practice rotating the car into each corner. So we're going to focus on getting off the brake to start the rotation, a brief period of coasting in some of the corners to allow that rotation to set, angle and trajectory towards the exit to be established, and then getting back on the throttle to control or adjust the rate of that rotation, and then finally accelerate the car to wide open throttle and through the exit onto the straightaways here at Watkins. Previously, we spent a bit of time learning the layout, looking ahead, using all the track, warm-up exercise, I should say, to find the limit of grip in each corner, and then looked at the curbing, most recently brake zones. And I would say that the last video, working out brake points at the end of the long straightaways at Watkins, is a prerequisite for this one. You definitely get more out of working out the brake points until we're arriving at each corner just in time after braking as hard and efficiently as possible. So once you're arriving at each corner and needing just a little bit of brakes to hang on, I think you're ready to start focusing on rotating the car in each corner. So first, let's take a look at an example of using the pedal inputs here into turn 1 to rotate the car. And what you're trying to do is balance out natural understeer or oversteer tendencies in the corner. Turn 1's pretty neutral, so we're going to get off the brake in a pretty controlled way. Just a little bit of trail braking to get the front left to bite, and then a little bit of coasting as it rotates into the apex, just the tiniest bit before feeding in that throttle and accelerating. So we've got some options when we're getting on the brake or back on the throttle, just how much we want to rotate. And in this case, trying to keep the car pretty neutral all the way through. So now that we've taken a look at that at turn 1, it's a little bit different for each corner around the track. For instance, in the in the bus stop, really what we're trying to do is get the car turned back to the left. So we want 0 rotation on the way in, releasing the brake before going over the first curve and just tapping the brake the tiniest bit to get the car rotating ever so slightly into the third apex curve and then accelerating out of the corner. Here into turn 5, it's just basically a lift, maybe a brush of a brake to get the car on the inner third. So only a little bit of rotation on the way in and then pretty minimal rotation once we get back on the gas and just hug this banked racing line through the exit of turn 5. Turn 6, there's a lot of understeer as the track falls away, and then that can quickly go to snap oversteer. So maintaining just the lightest trail brake to keep the front right, and then getting back on the throttle once the trajectory towards the exit is established. So one more time through turn 6. You can see it's very steep on the way into the corner, so we can use a little bit of a brake and then quickly off to pretty much brake lights only once we cross over the center line of the track, and then hanging on to that to keep from washing and understeer. We've finally done enough turning where we can begin to accelerate with our trajectory towards the exit and then feeding in the throttle pretty quickly because there's a lot of grip here at the bottom of the hill at turn 6. And at turn 7, we want to use a lot of braking and some trail braking to take advantage of the pitch of this hill to slow the car down, but then just a little bit of braking so we don't overload the front left as we pitch the car into the apex. Little bit of coasting, not too much as it settles, and then feeding in quite a bit of throttle to power up and out of the hill. So most of that's just avoiding the car from pushing off, but as we get back on the throttle, we do want to avoid over-rotating the car as a push to snap oversteer opportunity, or I should say challenge coming from the apex towards the exit. So right about here, it's pretty easy to get into a push to snap as the crossing over the middle of the track and losing some of the camber can snap into some oversteer. So I want to balance that out with the pedal inputs. Jumping up to the heel. It's actually a little bit of oversteer on the way in, which we can use to our advantage. Carrying just the slightest trail brake, not needing too much to rotate, and then getting back on the gas quickly to control and stop that rotation and turn that into acceleration. So essentially catching what would be a little bit of a slide in the rear end. I'll watch that at half speed. A lot of rotation and then catch of the throttle and quickly get to the unwinding phase. Heading up into the off camber, we're basically trying to keep the car from washing out wide and actually getting into the slight part where it's not as badly off camber, maybe even a little positively cambered on the inside, and then feeding in the throttle, being careful. This car is traction control, so it's cheating a little bit, but feeding in the throttle gently over that crest if needed. It should be pretty planted in our Boxster rental, but something to keep in mind. A long lift, maybe a little brush of the brake, and then feeding back onto the throttle, keeping a steady neutral rotation through turn 10. And then the car likes to oversteer into turn 11, so barely any brake, barely any trail brake, a little bit of coasting to let it settle, and then catch it with throttle down at the apex and maintain what's going to be a little bit of rotation all the way to exit. So there you have it, the pedal technique and how you'd want to think about rotating the car into each corner at Watkins. Now let's take a look at a demo lap. We can talk through the exercise itself. For the 10-lap exercise, laps 26 through 35, the first 3 laps just focus on that brake release and getting that initial rotation started. So find that you're able not just to get the car turned in, but start the slightest possible drift in towards the apex of each corner. In the next 3 laps, you want to work on catching that and managing that rotation with the throttle. And the way we get back on the throttle to, again, manage that rotation and then begin accelerating the car out of each corner. And then finally, take the last 3 or 4 laps to finish off the 10-lap exercise. Pull it all together and just try to nail that rotation, thinking about whether you want to control for a little bit of understeer, a little bit of oversteer, try to keep it neutral, and then use the pedals to set the desired rotation in each corner. This exercise is a little bit of a trial and error, experimentation kind of exercise. There's no perfect answer for each. Well, maybe there is an ideal perfect answer, but in reality, the way we get off the brake is slightly different every single lap. So how we get back on the throttle, how much we wait for it to coast, how much speed needs to bleed off, all of that happens in real time, and we use the pedals primarily to make those adjustments in rotation. So as we come through turn 9 and 10, wrapping up the demo lap of our exercise, keep in mind that we don't just want to use the whole track and drive at the limit. We actually want to create some more grip and forward thrust off the track by rotating the car into each corner. We do that by coming off the brake in time as we turn in the wheel, by letting the car settle towards the exit with a little bit of coasting, and then by feeding the throttle back in to accelerate on the long straightaways, controlling that rotation and minimizing it to minimize scrub on the way out. Every single corner here at Watkins is a little bit different, so definitely take a few laps and figure out the best way to initiate and control that rotation in each corner. But that's it for now. Stick around for the next video where we work out the flat car concept along with our steering wheel inputs and out of each corner here at Watkins Glen. Thanks for watching.